Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We are back on the Leviathan dev server and we're having a look at a paper Leviathan. This is the SOVETSKY SOYUZ and it's a ship that is going to be the crown jewel of the Soviet fake ships, I suppose. Basically, you have the Kronstadt, you have the Arkhangelsk, which is of course the Revenge class from Britain. You have the Novorossiysk and then the Ishmael, which is the project, and then also the Soyuz, which is also a project, plus the Sevastopol, which is also a project, which should not be too surprising. So the Sovetski Soyuz is on the left-hand side of the tech tree. You'll have to research all of rank 6 to actually get access to it. And what this thing is a conglomeration of insane ideas that didn't work in real life because, well, there was a few issues with production, let's put it lightly, and it basically, in the way that it is in the game, could have never truly existed. But, you know, this is War Thunder, so things get a second lease of life, and the Soyuz is the perfect example of this. This is going to be an 8.7 battle racing vehicle in rank 7, so it's going to be the top BR for naval, and the reason is because it has some massive guns and ridiculously chunky, crazy armor. So these guns are the 406mm, the B-37 cannons. They have a 2.1 round per minute aced reload, which is better than the Iowa somehow. And then also a pretty decent targeting speed for how big these types of guns are. The ammo elevators are not lined up with the actual ammunition itself, so I'm sure that'll be changed. But if it isn't, who knows? Because it's a project ship, maybe it was supposed to be like this. That would be hilarious. And then also, at the same time, you have the secondary weapons, which are dual-mounted 152mm. You have 6 of them, all around the side of the ships. Then you have 4 dual-mounted 100mm guns, which you can see in this little area here. And then also 8 quad sets of 37mm, which are in these really, really funny little turrets. Like you can actually see them along here, that this is kind of where they're set up. So they even have armor around their little turrets for their AAs. There's armor all over this thing in a pretty crazy amount. So the armament is looking very heavy towards anti-ship, not as heavy when it comes to AA stuff, but I'm sure a lot of those secondary guns are dual purpose, which will come into play. So the front of these turrets are 495mm thick, incredibly thick. And then also 425mm on the ammo elevators, which once again, incredibly thick. Then you have 425 on the bridge, keeping that going. And then the belt armor on this, you have 375 in the middle of it, 390 over here, and then 406 and 420 in the areas which are around the ammo. So in the center of the ship, you have a bit less armor, at least over here. But as you go forward, it gets even thicker. Plus, you have a 40mm setup here, which I'm sure has armor under it too, just like all of these things. And then you have only 25mm on the top with armor under it too. Then you have 230mm on the front, 285 here, and then also 220 on the side. So this thing is heavily armored. You've also got the fuel tanks at the bottom, giving additional protection to the ammunition, which sits incredibly low in the water. And one of the things I got to say about these Soviet machines, that's something that always seems to happen. Like these ones, they sit incredibly low in the water compared to a lot of other ships that are about. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if they're just the way that they're designed or what's going on with them, but they're just really low compared to everything else. Like it's something that I noticed with a lot of the kind of like First World War machines, like the Ismail, the Comuna, and then also the Maria. They're just very low, so actually hitting the ammo can be a lot harder to do compared to other types of machines. So these 406mm, they have a stock SAPC BC round, the semi-armor piercing capped ballistic capped shell, and they have 88 kilos of explosive. Jesus, 88 kilos of explosive, 629mm of pen, because why not? Jesus Christ. So just to give you an idea, the Iowa shells that you're supposed to use have 18 kilos. Then you have an APC BC 406mm, which has 850mm of pen and has 40 kilos worth of TNT equivalent. Just insane, the amount of penetration and the amount of explosive power that is on these shells compared to pretty much everything else that is coming along here. Thank God for fake ships. So when it comes to the SOVETSKY, it has a very nice primary armament, which is pretty good at targeting, pretty decent reload, very comparable to its contemporaries, and then also just insane rounds that have just a lot of penetration and a lot of power behind them, which is going to make this thing incredibly fun to use. For the 150mm, you have some HE, you have some AP, you also have some SAP, and also some HETF. So that means that you can kind of tailor what you want to this vehicle. You also have a hydroplane, which is quite nice, and then also the kind of mobility stuff on it, which is there too. One of the things I would note about this vehicle, so it does have very good armor, it does have very good guns. Mobility, not as good. Still good, you know, but its acceleration is worse, and also its top speed is worse. So from a actual maneuvering point of view, it won't be as good as other nations. Whether that will actually matter or not, we will have to see in terms of how the games actually go. But this additional armor on the front, and then also the additional penetration plus explosive mass on the shells, will just make this thing incredibly good to use. There may only be a few other machines in the game that you even want to look at when, you know, trying to face this thing, you know, stuff like, of course, the Yamato and others that turn up. It does also have some really nice camos on it, so that should also, you know, be noted. Nice camos always help when playing certain vehicles. It's always nice to have a bit of good drip. So this is kind of the setup for the vehicle. You can see all the little 37s there. That's the general fire rate that they have. So they will be able to put out quite a lot of damage against smaller machines, but mainly airplanes is what you're going to go after, right? Like you can see they were just like firing over there. And all of these like little guns, they can just pop and try and take stuff out. Same with the 100s. You can see the good elevation on the 152s as well there. So even if a vehicle is quite far away, it'll be able to deal with them quite effectively. The turrets themselves take a little bit less time to be able to get onto the target. And as we talked about before, the actual damage that these things do is pretty nuts. So it should be a vehicle which has a lot going for it in terms of that. You know, just the amount of overall damage that these massive guns are going to do, and also just how much you're able to bully a lot of the other battleships will be pretty cool to do. I hope that other nations do also get access to their crazy project ships. I think it would actually be really fun in order to actually do that. So we can just all live in this wonderful world of what naval could have been if it was allowed to fight, you know, one-on-one, and also if it was actually allowed to, you know, build to the point where it was. You can see like the little hydroplane here, which is pretty fun, like the little boy that moves around with the shikasses of all things. I really enjoy the shikasses just because they have a fantastic fire rate on them, so you can do quite a lot with it. You can see here we're up to 52 kilometers an hour. It didn't take too long to get there, but, you know, it is something to take into account that this thing is just a little bit slower than others. Whether that's going to make a big difference or not, that really is kind of the key, right? But overall, for this type of vehicle, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, you see quite a lot of these. It isn't as iconic as a lot of the other machines that were actually built in the game, but the stats alone, at least on this version of the dev server, make it look quite appealing and quite enjoyable to play. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.
I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Warthunder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.